Across the lands of Runeterra, whispers of mystical beings that walk the line between humanity and the wild magic of the spirit realm have echoed through the ages. These creatures, neither fully human nor entirely beast, exist in the shadows of legend and myth. They are the Vastaya, a race as enigmatic as the forces that shape them, with origins lost to time and customs veiled in secrecy. For many, the Vastaya are nothing more than fabled creatures, immortalized in folklore and dismissed as mere superstition. Some tales speak of them as noble protectors of the land, guardians of nature's harmony, and wielders of magic that predates even the oldest known civilizations. Others tell a different story, one of isolation, rebellion, and the slow erosion of a once great lineage, struggling against the encroaching march of human ambition. Though they dwell in remote regions, from the dense jungles of Ionia to the deepest recesses of Shurima's deserts, their influence on Runeterra extends far beyond their hidden enclaves. They are relics of an ancient covenant, proof of a time when spirits and mortals coexisted in ways now nearly forgotten. They are also a people at a crossroads, torn between the traditions of their ancestors and the shifting tides of the modern world. Yet the true nature of the Vastaya remains obscured. What forces birthed them? How have they managed to endure across millennia, despite growing threats from those who fear their power? And most importantly, what secrets do they hold that could change the fate of Runeterra itself? To understand the Vastaya is to peer into the very essence of Runeterra's history. Their story is one of magic and struggle, of alliances and betrayals, and of a people who exist between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. As we unravel the mysteries surrounding them, we must look beyond what is seen and delve into the forces that shape them into what they are today. Their past is long, their future uncertain. But one thing is clear: the Vastaya are not mere relics of history. They are living proof of Runeterra's deepest, most arcane truths. And as the balance of power shifts, their role in what is to come may be greater than anyone dares to imagine. The Vastaya are not a single unified race, but rather a diverse collection of clans, each with its own unique traits, customs, and relationship with the world around them. Scattered across Runeterra, they vary in form and temperament, some embracing isolation while others find themselves drawn into the affairs of mortals. Understanding their role in history requires recognizing the key groups and individuals whose presence shapes their destiny. Among the most well-known are the Vastaya Shire, the ancient progenitors from whom all Vastaya trace their lineage. Their existence is shrouded in mystery, and few now recall the full extent of their power. These beings were once deeply intertwined with the balance of the world, serving as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual realms. Though their civilization has faded, their legacy remains, woven into the very fabric of their descendants' existence. The remnants of their influence linger in scattered ruins, whispered traditions, and the potent magic still coursing through their blood. From these ancient roots emerged various Vastayan clans, each possessing unique characteristics shaped by their environment. The Marai, inhabitants of the ocean's depths, possess an affinity for water and its mysteries, dwelling where the tides dictate the rhythm of their lives. They are among the most reclusive, their existence often mistaken for legend by those who have never ventured far beyond the shores. In contrast, the Uvikat remain enigmatic even among their own kind, their isolation deepened by an air of secrecy. Few outsiders have ever penetrated. Further inland, the Kilash dwell within the deep jungles, embodying strength and tradition. Unlike others who have distanced themselves from humans, the Kilash uphold a warrior culture defined by discipline and unshakable loyalty. To them, survival is a test of honor, and their leaders are chosen through trials of skill and ferocity. Their way of life remains rigid, unchanged by the world's shifting tides, though the encroachment of outsiders threatens to disrupt this delicate balance. Equally formidable are the Shimon, whose mastery of illusion and deception makes them one of the most elusive of the Vastayan groups. Their ability to manipulate perception has made them a subject of both awe and distrust. Many of their kind live at the edges of civilization, preferring to operate from the shadows rather than confront the world directly. To those unaware of their presence, the Shaimon are nothing more than whispers in the wind, their influence subtle but undeniable. Not all Vastaya remain hidden, however. Some have taken on more prominent roles, walking the fine line between their kin and the world of humans. Among them is Ahri, a being whose allure and arcane gifts have made her a figure of legend in her own right. Unlike those who cling to ancient traditions, she has wandered freely, adapting to the changing world. Her connection to magic is undeniable, but the nature of her power and the hunger that accompanies it remains a subject of great uncertainty. Others, such as Raken and Zaya, embody a different facet of the Vastayan struggle. While Raken revels in the chaos of the moment, his charm masking the depth of his beliefs, Zaya's devotion to her people's survival is unwavering. Together, they have become symbols of resistance, defying the forces that seek to diminish their kind. Their actions, whether seen as reckless or necessary, mark them as key figures in the fate of the Vastaya as a whole. Beyond their own kind, the Vastaya's fate is inexorably linked to those who wield influence in the greater world. The humans of Ionia have long shared an uneasy relationship with them, at times coexisting peacefully, at others seeking to control or exploit their power. Some view the Vastaya as relics of a forgotten past, while others recognize the significance of their existence. This fragile balance has been tested time and again, often with consequences neither side fully anticipates. In the shadows lurk those who seek to manipulate the Vastaya for their own ends. The forces of Noxus, ever eager to expand their reach, see them as both a resource and a potential threat. Where there is strength to be harnessed, there is also the danger of subjugation. The conflict between these two worlds is not merely a battle of swords and sorcery, but one of survival against the relentless march of imperial ambition. Among the unseen players in this grand design are the entities of the spirit realm itself. The Vastaya are uniquely attuned to these forces, their very existence bound to the ebb and flow of magic beyond mortal understanding. Yet, the nature of these spirits remains elusive. Some are allies, others adversaries, and many act according to motives unknown to those who dwell in the material world. As the boundaries between magic and mortality continue to blur, the Vastaya find themselves at a crossroads. The forces that seek to shape their future are many, yet whether they will forge their own path or be swept away by the tides of history remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that they are far from passive spectators in the unfolding struggle. Their presence is undeniable, their role in the greater scheme of Runeterra's fate yet to be fully revealed. The origins of the Vastaya stretch deep into the ancient past, long before the rise of the civilizations that now dominate Runeterra. Their existence is a remnant of an era when the boundary between the physical world and the realm of spirits was far more fluid, a time when magic was not just a force to be studied or controlled, but an intrinsic part of life itself. This connection to the arcane is not something they acquired. It is something they were born into, the result of a long-forgotten convergence of two very different worlds. Before the first human empires took shape, before mortals began to carve their dominion across the lands, the world was in a state of balance, shared between creatures of flesh and entities of magic. The spirits, unfettered by time and untouched by mortality, moved freely across Runeterra, influencing the land, the sky, and the seas in ways that are now impossible to comprehend. Yet even among these beings, there were those who sought something more, an existence beyond the ephemeral, a means to experience the world in a way only the living could. It was this desire that led to the first true blending of spirit and mortal, a merging that would one day give rise to the Vastaya. This was not a singular event, nor was it driven by a single purpose. In some places, spirits found kinship with certain creatures, shaping them into something neither fully one nor the other. In others, powerful forces wove their influence into the natural order itself, leaving behind beings forever changed. These early manifestations were scattered, their forms and abilities dictated by the lands they called home. Some flourished in the wilds, living in harmony with the shifting tides of magic. Others became isolated, struggling to maintain their connection to the forces that had once defined them. As time passed, the world changed. The rise of mortals, those unbound by ancient pacts and unshaped by the will of the spirits, introduced a force unlike any other. Unlike the Vastaya, whose existence was intertwined with the ebb and flow of magic, humans were creatures of ambition and will. They built cities where there had once been wilderness, forged weapons where once there had been only natural law. They expanded relentlessly, and with their growing presence came disruption. The balance that had existed for countless ages began to shift. Magic, once a natural element of the world, became something that could be controlled, manipulated, and even stolen. As human societies developed, many saw the spirits not as equals but as tools, their power something to be harnessed rather than revered. For the Vastaya, whose very essence was bound to these forces, this was not merely an inconvenience. It was a threat to their existence. Over time, tensions between the Vastaya and the growing civilizations of humans escalated. Some sought to coexist, attempting to preserve what remained of the old ways, while others retreated further into secrecy, shielding themselves from those who would exploit their nature. But there were also those who resisted, who refused to accept the encroachment of an ever-expanding world that saw them as little more than remnants of an age long past. These divisions deepened, and what had once been a tenuous balance began to crumble. The breaking point came not through a single act, but through countless conflicts, betrayals, and desperate measures taken on both sides. As humans sought to claim dominion over every corner of the world, the Vastaya found themselves forced into an impossible choice: fight to preserve their place in Runeterra or fade into the forgotten recesses of history. Some chose to defend their sacred lands, wielding magic passed down from their ancestors. Others attempted to integrate, though they found little acceptance among those who viewed them as outsiders. Yet no matter the path taken, the result was the same. The world was changing, and with it the role of the Vastaya was becoming ever more uncertain. The ancient harmony between spirit and mortal was broken, and in its place rose a world in which the old ways were increasingly seen as myths rather than truths. The consequences of these shifts were not immediate, but they were inevitable. The Vastaya, once part of a vast and interconnected existence, now found themselves caught in a struggle not just for survival, but for identity. Their once thriving communities became more isolated. The understanding of their origins grew dim, lost to time and the fading connection to the spirits that had once guided them. The magic within them remained, but as the world around them changed, so too did their place within it. What was once a people united by their nature became fragmented, each group adapting to the challenges before them in different ways. The weight of history bears heavily upon them, a reminder of what has been lost and what may never be regained. Yet despite all that has passed, the Vastaya remain. They are a living testament to a past that many have tried to erase, an enduring mystery in a world that has long since moved on from the age that birthed them. But the past is never truly forgotten, and the forces that shaped them have not vanished completely. Somewhere, beneath the surface of history, the echoes of what once was still linger, waiting to be uncovered. The story of the Vastaya unfolds across centuries, shaped by the changing tides of magic, conflict, and survival. Their existence, once part of a natural balance, was gradually altered as external forces reshaped the world around them. Each phase of their history carries marks of struggle and adaptation, leading them to their present state, a people torn between preserving their heritage and finding a place in a world that often sees them as relics of the past. In the earliest eras, the Vastaya thrived in a world where magic was an unbroken current flowing through all things. They lived in harmony with the natural world, drawing strength from the spirit realm and maintaining traditions passed down from the time of their ancestors. Their connection to this energy was intrinsic, a part of their very being rather than a force to be commanded. This age was not without its dangers, but the Vastaya understood their place in the grand design of existence. They lived in scattered yet strong communities, each bound to the unique magic of their homeland, forming societies that needed little from the outside world. As the first human civilizations expanded, the Vastaya were gradually pushed to the fringes of society. The lands they had known began to change, and with them, so too did the forces that once nurtured them. The spread of human settlements brought agriculture, industry, and war, each act altering the environment in ways that disrupted the delicate balance the Vastaya depended on. Some of their kind chose to remain hidden, retreating into the depths of forests, mountains, or oceans to avoid contact. Others sought to negotiate with the emerging human kingdoms, hoping to maintain some form of coexistence before the tide of expansion became overwhelming. Tensions grew as more humans sought to harness the magic that had once been exclusive to the Vastaya and their ancestors. Sorcery, once a sacred connection between the spirit world and the material realm, was now something to be studied, dissected, and weaponized. Some human factions viewed the Vastaya as a source of untapped power, their ability seen as a resource rather than a birthright. This marked a turning point, as interactions between the two groups became less about coexistence and more about dominance. Attempts to integrate were met with mixed results. In some places, Vastaya found themselves welcomed in human courts, valued for their wisdom and mystical knowledge. In others, they were feared, persecuted, or exploited. Certain individuals, realizing the threat of complete displacement, took on roles as intermediaries, seeking ways to prevent outright conflict. But these efforts could only slow, not stop, the inevitable. The strain of this growing divide eventually led to outright confrontation. Some Vastayan groups, refusing to be pushed aside, chose to fight back against human encroachment. Skirmishes erupted in various regions, ranging from small-scale clashes to full-scale battles. The humans, with their growing numbers and increasingly advanced weaponry, often held the advantage, yet the Vastaya possessed something their adversaries could not fully understand: magic intertwined with their very essence. This made them unpredictable opponents, capable of feats that defied mortal comprehension. Despite their power, the Vastaya were not united. With their people scattered across different regions and their cultures shaped by diverse experiences, no single leader emerged to unify them under one cause. Some believed that war was the only solution, while others insisted that diplomacy might still offer a path forward. This internal division weakened their resistance, allowing humans to gain further ground. As the years passed, many Vastaya withdrew into secrecy, their settlements hidden behind illusions or concealed within the most inaccessible parts of Runeterra. While this strategy ensured their survival, it came at the cost of their presence in the world. Their stories became myths, their traditions forgotten by those outside their own kind. Human societies continued to evolve, building cities and empires that pushed the Vastaya further into obscurity. In time, only a few of their kind remained in the public eye, and even then, their existence was often met with skepticism. Those who did interact with the wider world found themselves caught between two identities, never fully a part of human civilization, yet increasingly disconnected from their own heritage. Some chose to live among mortals, adopting their ways while keeping their origins hidden. Others became outcasts, seen as neither friend nor foe, but something in between. Though many of their settlements still exist, they are now scattered, their influence diminished. Some remain devoted to protecting what little remains of their ancient traditions, while others search for ways to reclaim the balance that was lost long ago. The world has moved on without them, yet their story is far from over. The Vastaya continue to endure, their future uncertain, but their past never truly forgotten. The echoes of their struggle remain, a reminder that even those who fade from history are never entirely lost. For centuries, The Vastaya existed in a delicate balance, their connection to the spirit world defining both their power and their isolation. But as the world around them changed, so too did their place within it. The moment that would alter their fate was not a single battle or the rise of a new ruler. It was a choice, one that divided their people and forced them to decide what it truly meant to survive. The tension between the Vastaya and the expanding human civilizations had long been building, but there came a point where their way of life could no longer remain unchanged. Across Runeterra, Vastayan communities faced the same harsh reality. Their lands were shrinking, their magic was weakening, and their traditions were slowly eroding under the weight of a world that no longer had a place for them. Some sought refuge in the deepest corners of the wild, retreating into the safety of their ancestral homes. But even isolation could not protect them forever. The defining moment came when it became clear that coexistence was no longer a viable path. For generations, the Vastaya had debated how to respond to the growing presence of humanity, but the time for discussion had ended. With their way of life under constant threat, the Vastaya were forced to decide whether to remain passive, attempt to integrate, or fight for what was theirs. This decision was not made by a single leader or a unified council. There was no single answer that satisfied all of their kind. Instead, different factions within the Vastaya made their own choices, setting in motion a series of actions that would shape their future. Some saw the growing dominance of humans as inevitable and chose to adapt rather than resist. These individuals, often the most pragmatic among their kind, sought ways to blend into human society. They hid their true nature, taking on roles as scholars, healers, and advisors in the courts of human rulers. While this allowed them to survive, it came at a cost. Their traditions began to fade, their connection to the spirit world weakened, and over time, many of them became indistinguishable from those they once viewed as outsiders. Others, however, refused to submit. To them, the idea of abandoning their heritage was unthinkable. They chose resistance, believing that the only way to preserve their kind was through direct action. This defiance took many forms. Some engaged in open conflict, launching attacks on human settlements that encroached on their lands. Others worked in the shadows, using their connection to magic to sabotage their enemies from within. These acts of defiance, while often desperate, proved that the Vastaya were not willing to simply fade into obscurity. Yet, not all who rejected integration sought war. Some believed that the key to survival lay in reclaiming the power they had lost. They turned to ancient rituals, seeking to restore the connection to the spirit world that had been weakened over the centuries. These efforts were not without risk, as the forces they attempted to invoke were not always predictable. But to those who took this path, the danger was worth it if it meant regaining what had been taken from them. The division among the Vastaya was not just a matter of ideology. It became a fundamental rift that altered their society forever. Those who integrated found themselves increasingly disconnected from their own kind, while those who resisted found that their fight was not only against humans, but against time itself. As the years passed, the impact of this choice became more evident. The Vastaya were no longer a single people with a shared destiny. They had become fractured, each group pursuing its own version of survival. This shift marked the end of an era. The Vastaya, once bound together by a common origin and a shared connection to magic, were now a scattered and divided people. The consequences of this decision were far-reaching, shaping their interactions with the world for generations to come. Some thrived in their new roles among humans, while others vanished into legend, their stories passed down only in whispers. But regardless of the path they chose, one truth remained. Their fate had been forever changed by the decision to either adapt, resist, or seek power beyond the grasp of mortals. The Vastaya's choices, whether to resist, integrate, or reclaim their ancient power, did not simply shape their own fate. The ripple effect of their actions extended far beyond their scattered enclaves, influencing the balance of power across Runeterra in ways both seen and unseen. The struggle for survival among their kind did not occur in isolation. It altered the course of conflicts, reshaped the understanding of magic, and introduced new tensions between those who sought to dominate and those who wished to preserve what was left of the old world. As the Vastaya fractured, so too did the stability of the regions they inhabited. In places where they chose to fight, entire territories became battlegrounds where their magic clashed against human ambition. Some of these skirmishes never reached the pages of history, erased or ignored by those who controlled the narratives of great wars and empires. But the impact remained, evident in ruined settlements abandoned to time, in unexplained disappearances of those who ventured too far into the wild, and in the whispers of soldiers who spoke of enemies that moved like shadows and vanished like mist. The influence of the Vastaya was not limited to direct conflict. Those who chose integration did not merely fade into human society, they shaped it from within. Some became advisors to rulers, their wisdom sought after by those who recognized their deep understanding of magic and the unseen forces that shaped the world. In these roles, they guided decisions that altered the course of history, steering conflicts away from certain paths or subtly nudging events toward outcomes that benefited their hidden kin. Their presence was rarely acknowledged openly, but their impact was undeniable. At the same time, those who delved into forgotten rituals in an attempt to reclaim lost power awakened forces that had long lain dormant. In their desperation to restore their connection to the spirit world, they disrupted delicate balances that had kept certain energies contained. This had unintended consequences, as the lines between the physical and magical realms became increasingly unstable in places where these rituals were performed. Strange phenomena began to manifest, regions where time flowed unpredictably, places where the land itself seemed to shift in response to unseen wills, and areas where those who entered were never seen again. Human scholars and sorcerers, always seeking new sources of knowledge and strength, took notice of these disturbances. What had once been considered myth and legend became the subject of relentless pursuit. Expeditions were launched into Vastayan territories, driven by those who wished to either understand or exploit the power hidden within these lands. Some sought the secrets of their longevity, their magic, or the artifacts left behind by their ancestors. Others hunted them for far darker purposes, seeking ways to extract and weaponize their essence. In some regions, this newfound attention led to fragile alliances, as factions of Vastaya saw an opportunity to gain influence in a world that had long threatened to erase them. In others, it led to outright conflict, as human ambitions clashed with the determination of the Vastaya to protect what little remained of their heritage. The consequences of these encounters varied. Some brought about uneasy coexistence, while others deepened the divide, ensuring that the mistrust between their species would never fully fade. Beyond the physical world, the spiritual forces that had once been the foundation of Vastayan existence also felt the impact of their decisions. The ancient connection between the spirit realm and the material world weakened in places where the Vastaya abandoned their traditions, while in other regions it grew dangerously unstable due to reckless attempts to reclaim what had been lost. This imbalance was not confined to their kind alone. Other beings attuned to these forces took notice, and some moved to take advantage of the shifting power dynamic. In Ionia, where the presence of magic had always been stronger than in most other lands, the effects of these disturbances were most visible. The natural harmony that had long defined the region became fragile, as energies once in balance fluctuated unpredictably. This was not just a Vastayan problem. It affected the land itself, the spirits that had long dwelled within it, and the humans who depended on its stability. Some saw the Vastaya as the cause of these disturbances and sought to drive them further into obscurity. Others believed they held the key to restoring what had been lost. Outside of Ionia, the consequences of their struggle manifested in different ways. In Noxus, where power was valued above all else, interest in the Vastaya took a more strategic form. Their abilities were viewed as potential assets, tools that could be studied, replicated, or forcibly acquired. Individuals with knowledge of Vastayan magic became sought after, not for their wisdom, but for what could be extracted from them. This led to conflicts not just between Vastaya and humans, but among different human factions vying for control over the secrets of their kind. In the distant lands where the Vastaya had chosen isolation, their presence was less visible but no less significant. While they remained hidden from the eyes of the world, their absence created gaps in the natural order. Creatures that had once been kept at bay by their magic began to spread unchecked. Old ruins, long watched over by Vastayan guardians, were left vulnerable to those who sought to plunder their depths. The world, whether it realized it or not, had relied on their quiet presence for far longer than anyone had acknowledged. Despite these sweeping changes, the Vastaya endured. Their struggle had left marks on the world, reshaping the way magic was perceived, altering the course of human ambition, and ensuring that their kind would never be fully forgotten. But whether their presence would remain as a lingering myth or rise once again as a force to be reckoned with remained uncertain. What was clear, however, was that their story was far from over, and the choices they had made would continue to shape the fate of Runeterra for generations to come. Among the many mysteries surrounding the Vastaya, few are as intriguing as the nature of their abilities, their connection to the spirit world, and the unique traits that set them apart from both humans and other magical beings of Runeterra. Unlike sorcerers who channel magic through learned spells or artifacts, the Vastaya's power is inherent, woven into their very existence. This has led to long-standing debates among scholars, mages, and those who have encountered them firsthand. What exactly makes the Vastaya so unique, and what limits, if any, exist on their abilities? One of the most widely discussed aspects of their nature is their shape-shifting ability. While not all Vastaya exhibit this trait to the same degree, many possess an uncanny fluidity in their form, able to alter their physical appearance in ways beyond human comprehension. Some can shift between humanoid and animalistic features at will, while others demonstrate more subtle changes, such as enhanced senses, agility, or temporary transformations that activate in moments of heightened emotion or distress. This adaptability has led to speculation that the Vastaya are not bound by the same physical laws as other beings, existing in a state of constant flux between their dual heritage. Closely tied to this is their long lifespan, another feature that sets them apart. While not truly immortal, Vastaya age at a rate vastly different from that of humans. Some are said to live for centuries without significant signs of aging, leading many to believe they exist outside the natural flow of time. This extended longevity fuels much of the human fascination with them, particularly among those who seek to uncover the secret to their resilience. Theories abound. Some believe their connection to the spirit realm slows their physical decay, while others suggest that their hybrid nature grants them regenerative properties that stave off the effects of time. Whatever the truth may be, it remains one of the most closely guarded aspects of their existence. Beyond their physical attributes, the Vastaya possess a unique relationship with spiritual energy that is unlike anything found in human mages or arcane practitioners. Rather than wielding magic as an external force, they interact with it instinctively, as though it were an extension of their own will. This allows them to perform feats that seem impossible by traditional magical standards. Some are able to manipulate the emotions of those around them, influencing thoughts and perceptions without the use of spoken incantations. Others demonstrate an ability to meld with the natural world, communicating with creatures or even influencing the elements in ways that appear more like symbiosis than direct control. This leads to another widely debated question. Are the Vastaya remnants of something greater? Many believe they are not simply a race of magical beings, but the last vestiges of an ancient power that has largely faded from the world. Theories suggest that they are descendants of beings who once held dominion over magic in a way that is now lost to time. Some even speculate that their very existence is proof that the spirit realm and the mortal world were once far more intertwined than they are today. This could explain why their presence seems to have diminished over the ages. Perhaps their power is tied to an era that has long since passed, and the further the world moves from that age, the weaker their influence becomes. Among the Vastaya themselves, opinions on their abilities vary. Some believe their gifts are sacred, a link to their ancestors that should be preserved at all costs. Others see them as a burden, a constant reminder of their separation from the rest of the world. And then there are those who seek to push the limits of what they can do, experimenting with their powers in ways that may one day unlock abilities beyond what is currently known. The most controversial aspect of their nature, however, is the question of whether their powers can be transferred or stolen. Throughout history, there have been rumors of humans attempting to siphon Vastayan magic for their own use, often through rituals or alchemical experiments. While no verified cases exist of a human successfully acquiring Vastayan traits, there are many who believe it is possible. Some secretive factions have spent years studying Vastayan physiology in hopes of replicating their gifts, though none have publicly succeeded. The mere possibility of such a thing has created paranoia within some Vastayan communities, leading them to become even more withdrawn, fearing that exposure to the outside world could make them targets for those who seek to exploit them. There are also whispers of a deeper secret hidden within the Vastayan bloodline, a dormant power that has yet to be fully awakened. Some believe that the magic within them is only a fraction of what their ancestors once possessed, and that there may come a day when their true potential is unlocked. If this is true, it raises even more questions. What would it take to restore them to their former strength? Have they willingly suppressed their own power, or was it taken from them by some unknown force? And if such a revelation were to come to light, how would the world react to the resurgence of a force that had long been forgotten? While many of these questions remain unanswered, one thing is clear: the Vastaya are more than just another race of magical beings. Their existence challenges the very foundation of what is known about magic, nature, and the boundaries between worlds. Their abilities hint at something far greater than what is currently understood, and whether that knowledge will one day be uncovered remains to be seen. Few individuals embody the complexity of the Vastaya's existence more than those who have stepped beyond their hidden enclaves and into the wider world. Whether seen as warriors, wanderers, or revolutionaries, these figures each represent a different facet of their people's struggle, some seeking to preserve the past, others to reshape the future. Their lives are marked by their choices, their strengths defining their influence, and their weaknesses exposing the vulnerabilities that come with their unique nature. Among them, one of the most well-known is a being who straddles the line between predator and protector. Her presence is captivating, her movements calculated, and her motives enigmatic. She does not align herself with any one cause, instead following her own path, one shaped by both instinct and experience. Her strengths lie in her adaptability. She is neither bound by the traditions of her ancestors nor fully immersed in the human world, making her unpredictable to those who cross her path. Yet, this independence is also her greatest weakness. Without a clear allegiance, she is often seen as untrustworthy, her goals unknowable even to those who seek to understand her. In stark contrast stands a figure whose passion burns with relentless intensity. He is not content to let the world dictate the fate of his people, nor does he seek compromise with those who have wronged them. His strength lies in his unshakable resolve, his ability to inspire others through his sheer force of will. Every action he takes is driven by a deep-seated belief that his kind deserves more than what they have been reduced to. But this same passion blinds him to the nuances of diplomacy, making him a figure of both admiration and concern. He refuses to acknowledge any path other than resistance, and this unwavering mindset has led him into situations where strategy and patience may have served better than reckless defiance. Alongside him, though differing in approach, stands another whose influence is felt just as strongly. Unlike her counterpart, she does not act out of anger, but out of duty. She is disciplined, methodical, and precise, a tactician who understands the importance of long-term planning. Her greatest strength is her ability to see the battlefield beyond the present moment, anticipating the moves of those who would seek to weaken their people. But this calculated nature also makes her appear distant, her emotions carefully guarded. While others lead through passion, she leads through logic, and though effective, this sometimes makes it difficult for others to connect with her on a personal level. Not all who shape the fate of their kind do so through conflict. There are those who influence the world through subtler means, navigating human society with a grace that allows them to exist where others cannot. One such figure has perfected the art of blending in, using charm and deception as weapons more potent than any blade. He thrives in the spaces between power, where words hold more sway than brute strength. His greatest gift is his ability to read people, to understand what they desire and how to use that knowledge to his advantage. But this gift is a double-edged sword, for while he can manipulate others, he too is constantly at risk of being outplayed. His trust is hard to earn, and even harder to keep, for he knows better than most that betrayal is always a possibility. While some Vastaya shape the world through grand actions, others work in the shadows, their names unknown to all but a select few. Among them is one who has dedicated her existence to uncovering the truth of their origins, delving into knowledge long buried. She is a seeker, an explorer, drawn not to battle, but to the pursuit of answers. Her strength lies in her mind, her relentless curiosity driving her forward where others would turn back. Yet, this obsession with the past often prevents her from seeing the present clearly. She is so focused on what was lost that she sometimes fails to recognize what still remains, and in doing so, risks losing herself in a history that may never be fully recovered. Then there are those whose influence is neither direct nor intentional. Some Vastaya, simply by existing as they do, challenge the world around them without ever seeking to do so. One such individual embodies this contradiction, living in a way that seems almost detached from the struggles of her people, yet by her very nature, forcing others to reconsider what they believe to be true. Her power is raw, untamed, a reflection of the magic that runs through all Vastaya, yet she does not seek to wield it with purpose. She moves as the world moves, allowing fate to guide her rather than attempting to shape it. This makes her an anomaly, a force that cannot be controlled or predicted, and as such she is both feared and revered in equal measure. These figures, though vastly different in their approaches, all reflect the challenges of their kind. They are bound by a shared heritage, yet divided by the choices they make. Some fight for a future where their people are no longer seen as relics of the past. Others seek only to survive, to carve out a place for themselves in a world that has little patience for those who exist outside its structured order. Their strengths set them apart, but their weaknesses remind them that even with all their abilities, they are not invulnerable. Through their actions, the fate of the Vastaya continues to shift. Whether they will one day find unity or remain scattered across the world, defined more by their differences than their common blood, remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that as long as individuals like these exist, the story of their people is far from over. Throughout history, the Vastaya have remained a subject of fascination, their origins and nature fueling countless debates among scholars, mages, and those who have encountered them firsthand. Despite the knowledge gained about them, many mysteries still surround their existence, their abilities, and their role in the greater balance of Runeterra. Some of these questions may never have definitive answers, but that has not stopped endless speculation and theories from emerging. One of the most debated topics is whether the Vastaya are truly the last remnants of a greater civilization, or if there are others like them hidden beyond the known world. Some scholars believe that what is known about the Vastaya is merely a fraction of the truth, that their kind once existed in numbers far greater than what is currently seen. There are theories that somewhere, deep in uncharted regions, isolated from human expansion, there may still exist enclaves of their kind that have retained knowledge and power that has long been lost to those in more exposed regions. If such hidden communities do exist, why have they remained undiscovered? Have they intentionally concealed themselves, or have they become so attuned to the spirit world that they no longer exist in the same way as those who still interact with the mortal realm? Another long-standing mystery concerns their connection to the Vastaya Shirei, the legendary beings believed to be their true ancestors. It is widely accepted that the Vastaya are the descendants of these ancient hybrids, but the full story of what happened to the original Vastaya Shirei remains unclear. Some believe they faded away as their connection to the spirit world weakened over time, while others claim that they were not simply lost, but deliberately erased. There are whispers that powerful forces, fearing what these beings represented, worked to diminish their influence and sever their link to magic. If this is true, what or who was responsible? Did the Vastaya Shirei vanish on their own accord, or were they forced into extinction by a force greater than themselves? Beyond the origins of their ancestors, there is also the question of whether the Vastaya themselves are undergoing an irreversible transformation. Many have speculated that, as the ages pass, the magic within them is slowly diminishing, making each new generation weaker than the last. If this trend continues, will the Vastaya one day cease to exist as they are known today? Some fear that their kind is on the verge of becoming fully human, losing their spiritual essence as their bloodline becomes increasingly diluted. Others suggest that this is not a weakening, but rather a shift, that the Vastaya are not disappearing, but instead evolving into something new, something that neither they nor the world has yet fully understood. Closely tied to this is the ongoing debate about the Vastaya's ability to influence their own magical nature. Unlike human mages, who must study and refine their craft, the Vastaya's abilities are instinctual. But if their magic is part of their very being, could it also be altered? Some believe that their connection to the spirit world is not as unchangeable as it seems. There have been rare but significant cases of Vastaya displaying powers far beyond what is considered natural for their kind. These anomalies have led to speculation that some Vastaya may have found ways to expand their abilities, either through ancient rituals, unknown knowledge, or even external intervention. If their power is not fixed, then what is the true potential of their kind? Could the Vastaya, under the right conditions, unlock abilities that even they are unaware of? This question leads to even greater concerns. If the Vastaya are capable of altering their magic, then is it possible for others to manipulate it as well? Throughout history, there have been attempts to harness their essence for various means, but there is little proof of any true success. However, the mere possibility that their magic could be extracted or artificially replicated is enough to cause alarm. If the wrong individuals were to uncover a method of controlling or even weaponizing their abilities, what would that mean for their future? Could the Vastaya one day become commodities, hunted not for their land or knowledge, but for the power locked within their very bodies? Some theories go even further, suggesting that the Vastaya may hold a key to something far greater than their own survival. There are those who believe that their connection to the spirit realm is not merely an ancestral trait, but part of a larger design. The spirit world has long remained a realm of mystery, its relationship with the mortal world understood only in fragments. If the Vastaya exist as a bridge between these two realms, then what happens if that bridge is severed? Could their continued existence be essential to maintaining the balance between the worlds? And if so, what would be the consequences of their extinction, not just for their kind, but for all of Runeterra? These unanswered questions ensure that the Vastaya remain one of the greatest enigmas of the world. While they may be fewer in number than they once were, their importance has not diminished. Whether they are relics of a lost age or harbingers of something yet to come, one truth remains. Their secrets have yet to be fully unraveled, and the deeper one looks, the more questions arise. The future of the Vastaya remains uncertain, But one thing is clear. Their existence will continue to shape the world in ways both subtle and profound. As Runeterra evolves, so too must the role of the Vastaya within it. Whether they will rise to reclaim a place of significance or fade further into obscurity depends on forces that have yet to fully unfold. Their long-term impact is tied not only to their own actions, but also to the shifting balance of power, the changing nature of magic, and the choices made by those who seek to control or preserve their kind. One of the most pressing concerns is the gradual erosion of their presence. As human civilizations expand and magic becomes increasingly studied and categorized, the unique position of the Vastaya as a bridge between worlds is at risk of becoming irrelevant. If their numbers continue to dwindle and their ancestral knowledge is lost, future generations may come to see them as nothing more than myths, their influence reduced to half-forgotten legends. Should this happen, the world will lose a vital connection to the spirit realm, one that may not be fully understood until it is too late. The consequences of such a loss are difficult to predict, but it is possible that severing this link could disrupt the balance of magic, leading to unforeseen consequences that would affect not just the Vastaya, but all of Runeterra. At the same time, there is the possibility of resurgence. If certain factions of the Vastaya find a way to rekindle the strength of their ancestors, their place in the world could shift dramatically. Some believe that the Vastaya are not in decline, but rather at a turning point, poised to rediscover abilities that have long lain dormant. If such a revival occurs, it could redefine their relationship with the rest of the world. They may once again become powerful figures in Runeterra's future, either as allies who safeguard the balance between realms or as adversaries who seek to reclaim what was taken from them. Another potential shift lies in their relationship with humanity. While the history between the two is filled with conflict and mistrust, there are also signs that cooperation is possible. If a new understanding is forged, it could lead to a future where the Vastaya are no longer seen as outsiders, but as integral parts of society. This could bring about an era where their wisdom and abilities contribute to the shaping of civilizations rather than remaining confined to the fringes. However, the opposite outcome is just as likely. If exploitation and conflict continue, the divide between the Vastaya and humans could deepen, leading to more aggressive attempts to control or eradicate their influence. The growing interest in their magic also presents a long-term dilemma. As more scholars and factions seek to understand, or harness, the Vastaya's connection to the spirit world, the risks of dangerous experimentation increase. There may come a time when their essence is no longer seen as something sacred, but as a commodity to be studied, replicated, or even weaponized. If this occurs, it could spell disaster, not only for the Vastaya themselves, but for anyone who underestimates the forces they are attempting to manipulate. Magic is not a resource to be carelessly extracted, and the consequences of tampering with such power could lead to instability on a scale never before seen. Another major uncertainty is the fate of the Vastaya's hidden enclaves. Some believe that the most ancient and powerful of their kind still reside in places untouched by modern civilization, holding knowledge that could change everything. If these isolated groups choose to emerge, they may bring with them forgotten secrets, lost histories, or even a new perspective on the nature of Runeterra itself. Such a revelation could alter the course of history, challenging long-held beliefs about the nature of magic, the origins of life, and the true balance between the mortal and spirit realms. Ultimately, the long-term fate of the Vastaya hinges on a single question. Will they reclaim control over their destiny, or will they be swept away by the relentless march of history? Their unique nature ensures that their story is far from over, but whether their future is one of resurgence or decline depends on choices yet to be made. One thing is certain. As long as they exist, the Vastaya will remain a vital, if often overlooked, force in shaping the fate of Runeterra. Their secrets may be shrouded in mystery, but their influence, whether acknowledged or not, will continue to echo across the ages.